What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to episode 41 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Today we got about a 33-minute episode. Going to be working on some stuff and things today. We're going to be getting just a tiny bit of work done on our deflector dish. I think we're going to do some little bit of work on the shuttle bay, if I'm not mistaken. And then we're going to start working on the saucer section again. So without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into this. We're going to get some candles up first to light this area up a little bit better. I don't know if these candles are going to stay here. They could very well end up being a permanent light fixture because I want this area to be well lit in the front. And I think the only other solution really would be to put candles on the inside of the dish and see how that works, which could be something, very well be something that I end up doing at some point. Yeah, see, that lighting looks a lot better than it did just a second ago. All right, so now we're going to switch to the white concrete. And I think that we're actually going to end up switching this out for what you see I just did there going down. I think we're going to be switching that out for the white quartz instead. We're going to bring this going all the way down. Almost all the way down. I think we're actually going to stop one short. Yeah, we're going to stop just one short. This way it has that little cut line in there because that's just pretty much how it looks on the Enterprise D, and that gives that perfect cut line that what I was trying to get before when we were working on the deflector dish last time. All right, now we're going to stop. Now we need to do a lip going straight across because we need to this lip down here, we got to add another row to that. Make it just a little bit thicker than it currently is. Yeah, see, now we're going to switch to the quartz. And the reason I'm doing the quartz is because I want it to differentiate just a little bit from that white concrete. So, because I don't know why, the two white concrete like we had before sitting side by side, it didn't look right to me. It looked weird. So I was hoping that doing the white quartz, it wouldn't look so bad. But as we zoom out, you really don't notice it. And it does still kind of look like the same. But at least when we get close to it, it doesn't look so bad. I'm not gonna lie, I even thought about using a darker color, but when I was looking at my reference material, I didn't see that there was a dark line like that going around the deflector dish. So for that reason, I decided not to do that. And at this point, I'm just thinking, at this point in the build, that I need to add another layer to the lip that I just pointed out a second ago, which is exactly what we're going to do. And then actually, the other thing that we need to do today is that the curve that meets the front of this lip on the deflector dish, we have to build that out too, but that's not going to take too long. All right, so now we're going to add an extra row of the lip here, and we're just going to go with the cut line. Now, I'm definitely being very conservative about doing this because I don't want to cover up all the work that I've done, but this slit for the deflector dish is not that big. But at the same time, it's not small either. I think that's maybe like the one variation between my Enterprise D and like the actual real one, is that the shape of mine is just a little bit different. But all things considered, it really doesn't look bad. It looks pretty good, and I'm actually really happy with how it turned out, all things considered. But I think that might be as much as we can get away with adding that extra lip. And it makes that area look just a little bit smaller, and it's not cutting anything off, which is great. Yeah, so now we have this side to worry about. We'll be switching over to the blue concrete. And we're essentially just going to be covering up this top portion in here. And the best way I can describe it is that we're just going to go with the cut line, but opposite. We're going to go out. And I think I just do that in rows of one. Now I have thought about stretching that out a little bit. Maybe making it like bringing like this existing row that we have now. I thought about bringing it maybe like 3 back or something like that, and then starting to progress up every 3, um, which could be something that I end up doing. Because sure, as I've been doing this, I'm sure some of you have noticed by now that I like to try out a couple of different things as I'm going. I actually had somebody comment on one of my videos yesterday asking me if I meant to make a change on the engines, and I'll totally do that. And my main reason for doing that is I like to try things out, and that's really a main reason why I do it. But one of the reasons why I show it is because I like to show people a variety of different ways that you can do things, because at the end of the day, it's dealer's choice as far as the way that you're building the ship and the patterns that you're using. And what I think looks good, you might not agree with. So I try to show all that stuff. I try not to edit anything out. Um, Really, the only times that I do that is when I'm testing stuff out off camera before I build anything. Um, but the majority of the time, I do end up showing everything with a few variations here and there. There's usually like maybe 1 or 2 things that I don't show. I think when there was part of the engines that I tested out off camera, and I think that there's a portion of the deflector dish that I tested out. Um, but other than that, I think I've pretty much done this whole thing, recording everything as a whole. And seeing that lip, that doesn't look too bad. I can live with that line there. That doesn't look so bad. It is a slight variation of how the ship actually looks. Like I said, you can mess around with things a little bit here and there. I think it still, regardless, screams Enterprise D. Um, and without pointing this stuff out, I don't think anybody's necessarily going to pick up on it. That lip that we added on the front on the deflector dish was just something that we had to add, what I felt anyway, to blend the hull on the front in with the deflector dish and make it look like one piece. I think it kind of worked out pretty good. All right, so I was actually wrong. We're going to be switching over and now doing just a little bit more detail on the impulse engine, not the shuttle bay. And then we're going to be going over to the neck. And I just want to get a little bit of detail in here. And really all I'm doing is that gray line that's running up the base of the neck, we're kind of bringing that down a little bit to bring that across the impulse engine to make it feel more like one piece. All right, now we just got to go with smooth quartz half slabs and fill all this in. Might leave that line there in the middle. And I need to swap out that block right there. There we go. I should have just done 2 full blocks where that's a little bit darker. That's why it's doing that. But that doesn't look bad. That looks pretty good. The only thing I need to change about is that's the wrong shape. The actual impulse engine. It needs to be more of a square shape. But if you like how that looks, feel free to keep it just how it is. I almost left it exactly how it is. I actually really like it like that. Gives a little bit more shape, but I was trying to keep this a little bit closer to how the Enterprise D actually looks, where I can help it. But regardless, no matter how much we try, there's going to be slight variations when building with blocks. All right, so now we're going to be switching over to one of the more challenging things on this build, the deflector dish, or not the deflector dish, excuse me, the saucer section. We're on the inside of the lower section of the saucer, and you can see I'm adding a row of white concrete, and we're just going to do this going all the way around. And I think I'm actually going to do all of this live. Now, when I was doing the first part of the Enterprise D, I know I did, or the saucer, I remember I did this in sections where I only showed a part of it. I think it was good to try it, but doing it that way. But I think going forward, I'm not going to do stuff like that anymore. I think I did a decent enough job explaining it, but I think it's a little bit easier when people are watching me build something in real time, as opposed to showing a portion of something and saying, "Hey, do this going all the way around." Um, so for that reason, you won't see me doing that again on the Enterprise D, really. There might be maybe one or two more times during the course of this build for like the really big sections, but going forward on all my new builds, I probably won't do that again. Um, so because of that, and I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out when I build if and when I build the Enterprise E, because that's going to be another big ship. I might actually have to scale it down a little bit in order to build all of it out. Otherwise, I could possibly end up blowing up my episodes. The only other way around it is that I'd have to figure out a way to fast forward my videos when I'm doing stuff like that, which could very well be a solution. I'm not super savvy when it comes to editing software. I've got a very basic video editor that I downloaded from Windows onto my computer to do this stuff. So if you're familiar with things like that, and there's an editing software that I can use that's free to fast forward through clips or make them go in fast forward, let me know, because that could be a solution on getting around that, so I could still do maybe the larger builds, but speed up some of these areas that, like we're right now, we're working on the saucer section, and it's going to take a little bit of time to get through all of this. But that could be a thing. We'll see. We'll have to play it by ear. I've been saying it now only because I'm still like heavy in working on the Enterprise D. That even with that being said, I don't know if I'd do another build this big, just because of the amount of time that it took me to build it. And I'm still really heavy into the build right now, and I'm not really that close to being done on it. Like, I've gotten a lot of work done on the outside of the ship, and I've got a decent amount of work done on the inside, but there's still so much that I need to fill in, and a lot of detail I need to do, and it's taking a lot of time to get it done just because of the scale of it. I think that was one of the benefits on building some of my other ships the size that I built them in, is I was able to do it in a relatively much shorter period of time. Like when I built the Cerritos, I did that in a couple of weeks, um, and from beginning to end, finished. And now working on Enterprise D, making it, 3-4 times the size of that ship, it's taking a considerable amount of time. Anyway, getting back in a little bit what we got going on here. Now that we did a row of white concrete going all the way down, we're switching to the quartz, and we're going to do this going all the way around this opening that we currently have. I believe after we do this going all the way around, then we're going to come back with half slabs and then start working on our transition again. We're literally just continuing what we were doing before when we were working on the saucer section. We've just kind of been taking a break from it at this point, because it was a lot to build this part out, and I wanted to get a lot of the rest of the ship done, so this way I can look at the different areas of my ship and figure out if my proportions are correct. That was main reason for doing that, and then also, to make sure that when I close in the saucer section, that all that stuff and the areas that I'm building on the outside of the saucer is matching up with the rest of the ship too. So far, we're looking pretty good. We still have a little bit of time left in today's episode. We still have about 18 minutes to go, so we're going to be getting some stuff done today. I'm going to try to squeeze in as much as I can into each episode without blowing the episodes up too much. Um, I wasn't initially anticipating this episode to be super long today. Not that it is, but still, I've been trying to stay within the 20 to 25-minute window where I can. I usually don't like to go over that unless I absolutely have to. And just between the clips that I had available, um, I didn't really have any other choice than to do a 30-minute episode, which isn't that big of a deal. But I'm going to try my hardest not to go over that where possible and to cut back where I can, at the same time showing as much of this build as I possibly can. Because there's a lot of stuff we got to do. Because even before we get this saucer section closed all the way in, we actually have to build out our circular corridors. Which is something that I always recommend doing before you close in your saucer, because it's easier to build it out when you have it opened and you can look down and make sure that your circle's correct, as opposed to trying to build it when it's closed in. And somebody might be saying, well, I could do it closed in. And my answer to that is good luck, because I'm only saying this from experience. I've done it. Um, when I was working on the Enterprise, the 2009 Enterprise, and this is just stuff I've learned from trial and error. The first time that I did the corridors, actually the first two attempts I did with the corridors, the hull was closed in, and it turned out to be a nightmare. I actually went back after that. This, bear in mind, building out my corridors twice, still wasn't happy with them because they weren't in a perfect circle or anywhere close to it. I ended up deleting the hull above me just so I could look down to be able to see it, to do it correctly. And yeah, so definitely, don't rush, to close up the top of this, because there's a couple of different steps that we're going to be doing here and adding a few more layers up top, and we're not even done here. As you can see right now on this row that we just added with the full quartz slabs, we're doing a row of half slabs directly underneath it. We're going to be doing that going all the way around. There's definitely certain things we got to figure out before we close all this in, and even, before we even start building out any rooms, like corridors, is definitely one of the most important things to have on your ship, because you need to kind of know where everything's going to be, or at least a loose idea of where things are going to go. One of the things I had not necessarily a problem with, but it took a little bit to figure out, was how I was going to get up into the bridge and make it down into lower levels of the ship. And I was able to build it in a way that my main turbo lift in the center of the ship goes up to the primary shuttle bay and the two main decks that we have, and then a surprise, and then of course the bridge itself, um, which was pretty cool, because I know that, like, on my 2000 and, or actually the Enterprise A from Star Trek Beyond, there were a couple of decks on that, but I didn't like, well, at least going up to the bridge, like in the middle, but I didn't necessarily design it out that way to begin with. That was something I really wanted to make a point to do with this ship, was plan things out ahead of time. And that's kind of where I'm getting at. It took me a minute to get there, but that's pretty much what I've been trying to get at, rambling on just a little bit, is that when you plan stuff out on here, it makes it a little bit easier. Um, Now, I know this part right now that we're doing isn't necessarily the easiest to watch, as I'm literally just looking straight up, and we're doing a row of half slabs directly underneath the row of quartz that we just added. And I usually don't like to be in a position where I have to look straight up and build, I like to be looking downward. I feel that it's a little bit easier to do it that way. Um, but it's really not that big of a deal. When you think of it this way, you can almost say that you're just looking straight down. Um, so in that sense, it's not really that big of a problem, but still, I try to avoid it where I can, unless I absolutely have to. But in this case, I decided that I want the curve to be just a little bit closer because I wanted to start cutting in a little bit faster than it being so stretched out. Because I think before we were doing it in a pattern of 3. Don't quote me on that. It could have very well been 2. But anyway, now we're going to go back that we've completed our row of half slabs going all the way around directly underneath our full block. We're going to do another row of half slabs directly behind that. And again, going with the cut line. As long as you're following your pattern of the cut, can't make a mistake. If you're not following this pattern, then you're definitely going to run into problems as you go. So I want to make sure that if you're going out extra, you're stopping one short. See, just like that, I went out one extra. I deleted it because if I didn't do that, it's going to mess up this whole thing. All right, so far we're looking pretty good. Got a couple more rows to do. I actually believe the rest of today's episode we're going to be working on the saucer. We're going to be pretty much focusing on a lot of it at this point. Because like I said, there's still a ton of more that we have to do on it. But I really needed to get some of the rest of the ship done before we could move forward with it. But it's definitely getting exciting because then now we're getting that much closer to having the ships more completed on the outside, and then slowly, hopefully, making our way into doing the interior here. And not too many more episodes, but we'll see. However many it takes, because I'm not going to cut any corners. I'm going to show you guys everything that I've done and every single step that I've taken to build this ship out to the best of my ability. Well, that's going. Don't forget that there's still plenty of room on my interior. So any rooms and areas that you'd like to see on the interior of the Enterprise D to see me build, be sure to drop a comment below. Let me know what rooms you want to see. I've been talking about this, and I just keep stressing it because it never fails. That I'll move on to other ships, and I'll get people that'll comment and be like, "Oh, can you make this room?" And it's like I have to respond to them and tell them like, "I'm sorry, I'm not working on this build anymore," because I usually, unless I'm planning on it, I'm not going to be coming back to it. So Enterprise D, I'm not planning on coming back to it. The Cerritos, I'm going to be coming back to it at some point. The Disco era Enterprise, I'm going to be coming back to that ship at some point because of Strange New Worlds coming out. And just like with the Cerritos, there's season 2 of Lower Decks coming out. So there's going to be reasons, hopefully, that I can come back and revisit those ships when there's new rooms that they show that I can build. All right, so now that we've done another row of half slabs going all the way around, we're going to switch back to the quartz. And on that same level, or same row, we're going to be doing a row of full quartz blocks going all the way around. And again, going with a cut. Now, since we're doing it this way, just like with the top portion of the ship, it is going to slightly get distorted as we go in with our rings. The only way around this would be, as we progress down every single row, would be to go back to the pixel circle generator and generate a slightly smaller circle, and then build that pattern out again to maintain that perfect oval, which I think could get pretty tiresome. Um, there is kind of a way to fix the distortion as we go down, and as this tutorial progresses and more episodes come out, you'll see it. There'll be little bits here and there that I'll show you how to fix some of the corners where it gets a little bit pointy in some of the the four corners. I'll show you how to fix that stuff. It'll be a little bit closer to a perfect circle. And then once, another thing that we can do too is once we get to a certain point, we can either actually go back to the pixel circle generator, generate a new circle pattern, or oval pattern in this case, and start fresh again so it doesn't keep deteriorating. There's a couple of different things that we can do, but that's just going to kind of be how it is. If I really, really wanted to, yeah, I could do that as we go row to row, but that would take a really, really long time to build this thing out. At this point, we're kind of just doing it the easier way, just going with the set pattern that we already have. Um, but I mean, if you really wanted to, I guess you could do it the other way, to have a slightly more perfect saucer. So if that's something you want to get into, only thing I'd say is let me know how it goes, because I think you're going to be working on it for a while. All right, got a couple more rows of axis that we got to get rid of. So far, we're looking pretty good. Yeah, because on the bottom of the saucer here, it kind of has like a second dish almost, an oval dish. It's almost like you have two dishes that are smacked against each other, one facing downward and one facing upward. And I actually kind of sat on it for a little bit, as you can see, um, trying to figure out how far I should actually make this bottom part of the dish come down by. Now you can in the dead center, and to find that center, I'm cheating. I'm using my x-axis point directly above me to determine that. And I'm just doing a line going straight across. And now we're going to do the same thing right here. This is one of the reasons why I have that x-axis point. Makes building on here just a little bit easier sometimes when you're trying to determine your centers. It's just the easiest way to do it, as you know, getting it over with once, so this way you don't have to worry about it later on and counting everything out multiple times. All right, we're in good shape. And you get a little bit more sense of scale on the interior of the saucer. Now you can see I'm counting out here. You might need to rewind back, but don't worry, I'm going to do it on the other side. That's because we're getting ready to do another oval. And we're going to be hitting up the pixel circle generator. So we're going to do it on this side. We're going to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. On the 10th row, we're going to do a block on each side. We're actually going to bring that down by 1, as in building below us by 1. All right, we're going to do the same thing on this side. Hey, see on this side, I actually made a mistake on that row. Just I did one too many, but we'll fix that. All right, now we're going to go over to our pixel circle generator. I am going to pause this for a second because I have talked about this a little bit in the past, but not as much as I should have. Because I get people ask all the time, how do you determine your center? I enter in a number that generates this line right here. And you're probably asking yourself, okay, what number are you entering in? I play with it and I add different numbers. Like, for example, more than likely, I had 50 and 20 originally. So what I did was I went back to my width, I typed in 51, I went to my height and I typed 21, and then it gave me a center. You have to play with it sometimes. You go in the pixel circle generator, and if you do, you'll see what I mean. But I'll almost all the time build it off of that because that's the easiest way to determine your center. And what we're doing is the two rows that you just saw me build out a second ago. That was this side and this side. So we're just counting from the center. We count out, and that's your starting point. You technically you don't need to count down this way because we already did that. So again, you cut your circle into 4 pieces. Where we only need this half right here. And repeating that 1, 2, 3, 4 times. We do it here, flip it down, build it here, and then take it this and flip it over this way, and you repeat that same process. And then you flip it up and you do the one last row. It's as simple as that. I'm telling you, if you have problems with this, you're overthinking it. It's really not a hard thing to do, and I tell you, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So anyway, we've got our pattern down for our oval. Of course, going off our center. And now we're going to build this up. And this is pretty much going to be the dead center almost, well, is the center of the bottom portion of our saucer. And we're going to be building a few things off of this. I still haven't decided if I'm going to build out the captain's yacht. Because that is something that the Enterprise D did have. They made concept art for it, in fact. It was just one of the many things that did not make it into the show, and it would be within this area that I'm building out right now. But again, I'm not quite sure that that's going to end up on this ship, and the only reason I say that is because the area that's directly above it, I still don't kind of want to say what it is. I want to wait until I get into it because that is kind of a surprise. And I have mentioned it before, but I'm not going to mention it again until we actually get into it for those that missed it. But there's a really cool thing that I'm going to be building on this Enterprise that I have not done on any other ship that I've done before. There's actually a couple of things. And I don't necessarily know that I'm going to have enough room to build out the captain's yacht in the way that I want to, but I might be able to figure it out. I'm gonna have to play it by ear because one of the problems that I'm running into is that the concept art that I found, I don't really have enough room on the inside to build out what I need to build out to match it. But I might be able to make something like it. I don't know. I definitely want to utilize that space that's going to be in that area though. So we'll kind of, see where we end up on that. Because I mean, I'm going to keep working on this thing until there's nothing else left to do on it. And if there's a couple of areas that we didn't fill in, that's not a huge deal. But I really want to get a lot of this ship done. And I'm not going to feel satisfied with it unless I do. All right. You can see I'm trying to build a little bit smarter. I'm doing both sides at the same time. And I'm going to the other side and doing the same things. Do one thing on one side, do it on the other. So instead of building out one row at a time, I'm building out all 4 rows pretty much simultaneously to make it go a little bit faster. Since the oval is a lot smaller, we can totally do that. Yep, and that's where I'm going to realize that I made a mistake. It was because that one row, I went 7 out, I think, instead of 6. It's this side right here that I messed up on. And this is how you can catch your mistakes. All other 3 sides are right. It's just that one side that's wrong. Actually, no, it was this side that was wrong. I stand mistaken. So now what? Just a simple process of going back, looking at your pattern, and doing it again on the side that's incorrect. Because I'm telling you, at this point, don't necessarily look at what I'm doing. Look at the pattern that you generated. Use what I'm doing right now in the moment as a reference for what you need to do, but it's important that you're using your own template to build this out, because if you entered in the same number that I did, you should have the same one anyway. But it's also important not to make that same mistake that I made. It's kind of what I'm trying to get at. So we're looking pretty good. Some of these ovals here in the middle aren't going to make much sense now, but as we go through and start filling in and adding in more layers and closing up the saucer, it'll make more sense, I promise you. Because what we just added, basically, this is a template for what's going to become that captain's yacht, which is the dead center of the lower side, and these circles above. This is going to be areas for eventually where the bridge is going to sit on top. And these ovals here is just kind of, these are ovals that are actually on the outside of the ship as well, but we're also going to double them and use them for stuff on the inside of the ship that we'll talk about at a later date. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap us up this week. We've gotten a considerable amount done. I'm pretty happy with the progress that we're making so far. She's really starting to look like the Enterprise D. And I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode and helping me in supporting this build tutorial. Everyone that takes the time to watch these videos, you all are awesome. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you always get notified when those new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, you can always catch my new Minecraft videos dropping Tuesdays through Thursdays. If you have any questions about today's episode, drop a comment below. I'll try to help you out if I can. If there's any builds that you want to see me do related to the Enterprise D or any nerd-related builds in general, be sure to drop a comment below, even if it's just to drop by and say, hey, definitely love to hear from everyone. But I think that's going to be it for today. Just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. I hope everybody has a happy and safe weekend, and I'll catch you on the next episode.